bird on a tree. I'm just sitting here. I got time. It's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit to...
Hi everyone, this is Monica Ramirez, Warrior of Love, and we're in Soul Talk podcast. And today we have a very old friend that we met in our path and a while back in around 2015 or 16 or something like that, right, Mike?
Yep, 2016.
Yes, and it's been we have grown in different ways, and finally we connect, and he have a very interesting. He became founder of something very very interesting. Let me present you with him and tell you a little bit who he is. Michael Shoeman. He is founder of the Karmic Margin Call Project, an interactive dedicated and ending poverty and war by leveraging time spent service in others in order to change the mechanisms of the global economy. Exploring spiritual and spiritual belief systems have always been Michael's top priority. He facilitates conversations with good people all over the world on a variety of topics, including how to shift the financial system, establishing deep democracy with other generations, creating mutual beneficial relationships between mental and health consumers and clinicians, and how to bring collaborative innovations into corporate and military culture. Michael is a dedicated husband and father of soon to be two sons.
Son and a daughter, actually. A daughter on the way.
Oh wow, that's good. That is always necessary. I can tell you that after having three boys, my daughter was necessary. It changed the whole dynamic. Michael, thank you so much for being here. It is really, really my pleasure to finally to have you in Soul Talk. And I have a bunch of questions after reading your bio. I have where this idea came from to start.
Thank you, Monica. And yeah, let me also say that it is an honor to be able to speak with you. This is the first time we've actually spoken face-to-face virtually, and been watching a few of the podcasts and really enjoying the conversations that you've been having, and just the realness of it, the authenticity that's coming out. You are doing phenomenal work, and I want to show appreciation and gratitude for you. So yeah, the idea of the Karmic Margin Call Project has really been kind of a labor of love for the past 20 years in a lot of ways. It's this idea that we really truly are, all equal when we're in our authenticity, when we are expressing our truths, when we are talking about what matters, caring about what matters, dedicate a life to learning, spiritual learning, which the paradigm that I think we're going into really helps to cultivate learning over teaching. In your last conversation with Nicole, it was said that the age of the guru is dying. So this place of being in an egocentric place where the goal is to try to get a lot of followers and try to amass amounts of money and try to dominate people's time is just not sustainable anymore. So the Karmic Margin Call Project integrates something called time banking, which has been in existence for over 100 years, but it's been coming more and more into the collective consciousness more within the last 15 to 20 years, that honors everybody's time equally. So whatever hour you spend or whatever time you spend, whether it's in spiritual conversation, whether it's providing a necessary service to survive, or if it's just providing a space, providing companionship, all of that time really does have the same value. So all time it's this psychological idea, this construct where we're just keeping track of how many numbers go by. But those numbers are defined by, the spiritual or the emotional experience we're having in that time. So the Karmic Margin Call Project really is an accounting system of time. And some of the ideas that I'm bringing into it is how to change the financial system by accurately recording our time and putting a new value to everybody, because it's an accounting system that helps everybody enjoy the same amount. There's a big pie, and we all have, under sovereign law, we all have an equal entitlement to whatever resources that we need to live authentically. And there's this big fight that we've been in competition over, culturally over hundreds of years, this idea of capitalism versus socialism. And that's not sustainable anymore. We can be socialistic with the Earth's natural resources, and we can be more capitalistic with our time, choosing how we spend our time as we become more of our authentic self. So the Karmic Margin Call Project is really just taking what we're already doing and adding more monetary value, more financial value to that, rather than being in competition with other people over scarcity. And scarcity is just an illusion.
Yes, I do agree completely that the capitalism, it was not equal. It was not fair. It was a system that it should be actually eradicated, because it's not helpful for the majority of the population.
Mhm.
But every time that
I think I'm losing you, Monica.
are not the communist and not the capitalist, and the real democracy, it can work if everybody we live in an utopia. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, not everybody has the same interest. We live in a narcissistic society, global wide, and that it makes it more complicated, because not everybody has the same intentions for the rest. Some people want more, not only have their needs paid, they want more. So
Mhm.
how you're planning to control this, or to make the conscience of the human being to change? That would
Mhm.
be amazing. I totally agree with you, but how you're planning to, when they're not even educated what is communism with socialism?
Mhm. Yeah.
Just those basics, they don't have it, the
Yep.
majority.
Well, the first thing is control is an illusion. There is no control. And my first, and I actually just had this conversation today with one of my partners and colleagues. When you start thinking in terms of trying to control or trying to change people's minds, that's when it becomes an uphill battle, and it's insurmountable. My belief is that it's already working towards, in natural law. There's really no such thing as good or bad. There's just balance. And we live in a society where things are very much off balance now. It's not sustainable the way we're going. So when it comes to people who want more, and they're used to having more, they're used to control. There is something that happens that psychologists call acquired sociopathy. So parts of the brain shut down in order to, that feels empathy, that feels compassion. And what happens is there's a balance that goes on with that. Some people call it karma. Some people call it retribution. And it's the kind of thing where those are not the kind of people that are going to be attracted to a conversation like this right away. It takes, it takes trauma sometimes. It takes something, again, you and Nicole were talking about this last week. It takes a traumatic experience to really find the blessing, to really find the empathy in that. So it's not the work to try to change people's minds or to try to or to try to set a new course. The universe knows what it's doing. Spirit, from a spiritual perspective, we know the path. So there's more of a surrendering that goes on, more of an acceptance, where I've been seeing a lot of I've been seeing things more from an emotional perspective, where if I'm not quite aligned with somebody, or if somebody's trying to create a conflict, I tune into what the emotion is. A lot of times it's fear, a lot of times it's guilt or shame, and there's an emotional spectrum that's that comes into play. For instance, fear. Fear is maybe a little bit lower than the halfway point. Progressive fear will lead to desire. So eventually, if someone masters their fear, they'll be able to get focused on what it is that they really want. Regressive fear will lead back to grief, to overwhelm, hopelessness. So it's the kind of thing where we're all spiritual beings. We're all spirit having a human experience. And by tuning into that emotion, I understand where emotionally, we need to be able to connect with somebody. If you're enlightened, or if you're feeling love and appreciation, you're not going to connect to someone who's feeling fear. And a lot of greed and a lot of this instinct to control really is a byproduct of fear. So it's the kind of thing where, rather than try to love bomb them, it's very helpful to be in that space and feel the fear and know that it's not yours. It's the experience of the hoarder. It's the experience of, I'll say it. I think with acquired sociopathy, that the elite are demonstrating right now, very fear-based. And I have some information and some idea about where that fear comes from. But to try to control that pulls you into that energy. To get back to your point, it's not a matter of changing or controlling or forcing anything. It's just about playing a new game, doing something different. And I look to connect to people like you, Monica. I look to connect to the people, who I am interacting with my small groups, with deep democracy and with collaborative innovation. And that's how it happens, is one conversation at a time.
I may say something that it may irritate some viewers, but well, uh, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is easier to guilt the government. That is a business.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it
It
whatever it is.
is.
But also the same thing is religion. It's a
Mm-hmm.
business.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
those are the ones that actually have put all this fear and programs for generations and generations and created and manipulated and controlled the governments all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that I can see that changing it is if the religion would not exist, because the people will still have fear.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I work as a NLP with my clients is precisely to removing all the programs that the religions have put on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and there's a lot of resistance from that. And there's
Mm-hmm.
people that still have that same fear.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's easy to guilt now the government. You're not going to guilt God, because they see it religion as God, when God doesn't have to do anything with a religion. God is totally separate. Source is
Mm-hmm.
totally separate from it. But people tend to guilt only the politics. I don't agree with how the world is going, but that same fears comes from that, a fear of dying.
Yeah. Yes.
And who put the fear of dying because you're going to heaven or hell is the religion.
Hmm.
So if we can eradicate, and at the same is it's very dangerous to eradicate completely the church, any religion, because then we're going to have the sociopaths that they don't have any fear of going to hell, and they're going to just start killing everybody.
Hmm.
How you can manage that in a society where I know the word narcissist is thrown everywhere,
Yeah.
but I've been, believe me, studying a lot of the narcissism, and it started in the families, and we
Yeah.
create narcissist generations, and it started in the families, and that's where the world that we are now, the lack of empathy, the lack
Yes.
of compassion, the lack and knowing how to control and manipulate others through
Hmm.
fear.
Hmm. Yes.
How we can fix that in the world that we have in now, for at least to the collective,
Mm.
without
I would.
without having an ubuntu.
Mhm. Without having an umbuntu. Well, I would say the first thing that comes up for me hearing that, Monica, is religion as we know of it. The Abrahamic religions are very patriarchal, and I think the restoration of the goddess is important. I think to bring back balance, the divine feminine, the divine masculine have to come back into balance. Um, in the hero's journey, in Campbellian mythology, there's this moment that happens in the climactic part of the story called atonement with the Father, at one ment, where where the Father's corruption needs to be confessed and atoned for. And I think that's where feminine and goddess energy, has a big role to play in finding that balance. Um, there is in my martial arts study, there is a martial arts. It's a soft martial art called Aikido, where the point of it is not to attack. It's not to fight back with force. It's merely to you know, accept the force that the attacker is forcing upon you, blend with it, redirect it, and gently try to protect yourself and protect your attacker. It's a centrifugal force. So it's the kind of thing where patriarchal society is always in a hurry. It's always competing. It's always linear. It's always trying to get to the thing. It's very object oriented. In my experience, divine feminine, the yin energy is about blending and pulling into centrifugal force, to find that balance. So, when thinking about what is wrong with the world or how to fix the world, um, it's really it's almost like it's sucking us into this game of competition. That in order to make the world better, we have to win, or we have to conquer, or we have to beat patriarchy. Um, my my belief, and this is a very very subjective belief, is that we don't have to compete anymore. With compassion, with the space, that is created through living in integrity, through just being present. There's nothing to fight for, because we already, if we can focus on something that connects us back to spirit, if we focus on something that brings us back to our present, you know that's the ultimate victory. And anything that tries to attack simply gets blended with, redirected, and gently pulled into circles until it tires itself out. Um, yeah. So to talk about what you are saying and addressing here in religion, it's patriarchal religions, patriarchal society is about competition, winning, getting to the top of the pyramid, being number one. But to me, the yin, the feminine, is just about, we're already here, we've already arrived. And it's just trying to figure out why does religion what is religion trying to accomplish that it can't already have, which is inner peace. And so if there's that competition going on within the person, if there is guilt, if there is fear, if there is anger, if there's all of that, what is the root cause of that? And I don't necessarily think that's going to be found in studying the roots of the religion. I think that's going to be found by studying the roots of somebody's childhood, the roots of somebody's needs. And yeah, and that's something we can make a difference with.
I do agree with you on certain point to bringing back the feminine. It has, but at the same time, I feel there has to be a balance. We have to
Mhm,
make the union of polarities
mhm,
because, or else we're not going to have a structure.
mhm.
And that's the male side. That's the masculine energy, the
Mhm.
structure. It is easier to say, oh yes, let's go to a matriarch society like it used to be
Mhm.
many probably eons ago that we can even remember when it was a matriarch society, maybe in the Incas and the Mayas and some societies that they don't even exist anymore. That we can even remember how was that. But for whatever reason, they don't exist anymore neither.
Mhm.
So it is important to have that balance, that make that union of polarities in each person because we all have that energy.
Yes, absolutely.
But I love your idea. Of course, we all are dreaming to go to the fifth dimension
Mhm.
and to live in this utopia in our dreamland that we all dream. We all want the same thing. The problem is people wants to go with the fears, with their
Yeah.
anger, with their own unhealed parts to that state, and that we can get to that conscience if we're carrying all that baggage. How we can make a global change in the in healing the conscience of the humanity so we can achieve actually going to that fifth dimension that we all wanted
Mm.
because
Was that a question? I'm sorry.
we can say that we can I can say yes I can change my conscience I can change all my whole being that I have grown many and I believe I can and continue growing that I'm gonna get there yes but what is gonna happen with the rest of the people because that's one of the points why we're here to start as star seeds as star light workers way showers whatever names you want to call us that's
Mhm,
why we're here to help the rest of the humanity
mhm,
so how we're gonna change that in this with this idea that you have because that would be ideal if we have a we know how we can help the rest of the people to have conscience and have compassion for the rest of the world
mhm, mhm,
how you're planning to do that because you're incorporating what I read in your bio even the military
mhm,
when for them it's also a business war
mhm,
and to stop fighting it's like they're not so much interested in peace
mm,
how you're planning to do that and structure that in your foundation.
mm. Well, I can tell Monica there's no plan um, as far as an organizational structure. The plan is to show up with authenticity and to be able to really allow the space for someone who is at war with themselves to really be able to find what it is they're really at war with. Because what comes up for me as you ask that question is that with war, with military, with conflict, there's something lacking, within the consciousness of the individual that allows them to be attracted, to the violence, to organizational, to conventional violence, and it happens, one conversation happens, one interaction at a time. Someone who is obsessed or addicted with war would have to find the real courage to find out what it is that they're really at war with. And usually what that is, it's a broken relationship with a parent, with a loved one. And that's what takes real courage. And that's the environment that we facilitate with this project, with our pattern integrity, is that when somebody is really truly ready to take ownership of their trajectory, of their path, they can find out, what is it that they're really at war with. Because I think there comes a time when the cultural conditioning is just, and this can happen for anybody at any time, regardless of the spiritual path they've been on. At some point, there's a catharsis. There is a moment where it is understood that to live authentically and to find more growth, more meaning, that it's going to take more than these organizational systems to find real fulfillment. And when somebody is ready to truly take ownership of their courage, not this self-image actualization, but true self-spiritual actualization, that is the space that we hold. That is the space that we hold for the individual who is ready to confront what they're really at war with.
Maybe the solution in there, it will be into other point that you gave me in your bio. It is the mental health with the medical industry.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big problem. I see it more in United States than in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And in the United States, if you want to go to therapy, they will not even treat you if you don't take medicine,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to do the work. And I grew up in Mexico, and in Mexico, I used to go to a psychologist in Mexico, and they do the work without the medication. It was your option if you wanted the medication. It was not forced like in United States.
Mm-hmm.
And they were more hands-on, and I see it that that's becoming a big problem for in more in United States, because coaches, we don't get paid by insurance,
Yes. No,
and
we
if
don't.
we don't have money to support us, we have to still pay the light and the water and our bills and feed our families.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big problem. It would be great if your foundation, in a way, if find a way that the the medical industry, or they don't charge much, or they find ways to pay the coaches if they don't are not willing to get their hands dirty, like the coaches, or something like that, because that is a mental problem,
Yes.
the psychosis, the narcissism, the selfishness, etc. It's a
Mm-hmm.
mental problem that we have in our society.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes. And
what
I'm sorry, go ahead.
what proposal do you have for that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just had a conversation with some of my partners about this, and what we're wanting to do is bring in artistry, bring in spirituality into a clinical session or into a clinical environment. One of the barriers to really healing mentally is this barrier that clinicians put up with. I hate to use the word consumers. The people in the mental health industry really resent that word consumer. So we've been using the word challenger. But there's this barrier that goes up that comes with education, prestige, um, where on this hierarchy there's this disconnect, and everyone is in the clinical field is stuck in their head that they stop feeling. And what we're organizing right now is conversations where we invite both clinicians and challengers to let go of their roles, positions of authority, and speak to each other as human beings first. A lot of times, especially with coaching and coaching that is associated with business, um, we have it backwards because there's so much sales to it. There's so much salesmanship. Everything is about overcoming objections, creating dissension, and then making commitments right away before you really get to know someone. So with our pattern integrity that we're looking to set up between clinicians and challengers, we invite everybody into a space where we connect as people first. We have appreciation conversations. Then we discuss possibilities, what could we possibly do? Then we put forth invitations that resonate most with everyone. And then we have healthy dissension where, we say, this doesn't feel right to me and this is why. And, within those conversations, we come up with forward movement, with pathways where clinicians can step down from their pedestal a little bit and challengers can step up in self-empowerment a little bit, because what it's really about is just facilitating the healing space for everybody. And that's a hard environment, a very difficult environment for clinicians to step into. And again, that's why I say it's going to take a lot of bravery. It takes a lot of courage, but at least now the space is becoming existent. We're creating spaces where those kind of interactions can start to happen. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes an investment in time. That's why we have a time bank, because you can invest as much time as you need to be able to take those brave steps, to be able to make those brave spaces, where people can see each other as they truly are, in their authenticity, in their value. Because in a lot of circumstances, and I found this more often than not, clinicians are really just consumers or challengers that are just highly functioning. They can hide behind their education all they want, but at the end of the day, that joy, that happiness, that true awareness of spirit, they can't ignore that forever, and it shows up all the time with greed, with narcissism, with aggression. So that's those are some of the conversations that we're starting to facilitate now. And again, it doesn't happen overnight, but it's the kind of thing where it's a tiptoe. We're tiptoeing into that, and I've seen a lot of bravery. I've seen a lot of people being courageous, being vulnerable. I have a good friend who's a psychologist who's admitted that, her doctorate is her armor, and that she has to put on her armor and shut down her feelings before she goes into, a session. That's incredibly vulnerable to admit to someone. So it's a first step. It's a first step.
I call them a lot of the doctors that they're sales rep, because they would test. There people are afraid of the vaccines right now because they're experimenting on us. Every time you go with a doctor, they're experimenting on you. They're testing different medications to see which one fits, and you take them. So, what is the difference with millions of vaccines that are already being put in people, and they haven't died?
Yeah.
and you already see any commercial of any medication, and this will fix your heart, but it will mess up all these things, then basically you're gonna die if you take it. So
Yeah.
what is the difference between vaccines and the medications that the doctor give you?
Mm. There might not be. I honestly, I can't speak personally to that. I honestly, I don't think I've been on a medication in 30 years, Monica, to tell you the truth. I I think there's a lot of commercialism involved with it. That's my personal belief. And I think we do need to have, and when I say we, I mean culturally, we do need to have more emotionally intelligent conversations about that, because there's so many variables that we disassociate from. A friend of mine and I were having this conversation about how people are developing all of these other side effects now after having the vaccine. And I would be interested in seeing the data, like I think I read that Pfizer's drug sales went up 15%, 50% on these drugs. I would be interested to see how many of those actual people took the Pfizer vaccine, and now they have to take more Pfizer medication. I think there would be correlations. I think there's a big need for transparency in being able to to understand big pharma and the medical industry. But I think we need to move into more brave spaces to have that kind of transparency. So that we can see, look, this is where the money is going. This is the honest truth about how many people are having side effects and how many people are actually dying from that. Because depending on like Facebook's algorithms or Google's algorithms, some people have access to different information, and we're not getting the full picture. And unfortunately, we're not being emotionally developed to be able to consider the multiple variables that have to do with this, with the vaccines, with the pandemic. And I just think it's time for us to grow up, to mentally, emotionally, and spiritually grow up.
And we can shun all the science behind everything. And I'm not saying that the media will display they're transparent or they're truthful, but but either side, they're being ridiculous.
Yeah.
I put the vaccine, the Moderna, and people have asked me if I can put a magnet in my arm, and it will stay there. It's like that's ridiculous. Like because somewhere in TikTok was they were putting that the magnet will stay in your arm. I have demonstrated to friends that you see it falls down. Why? Because I don't have nothing in my arm.
Mhm.
I have just the first 3 days, like any vaccine when you're a baby, take your baby to put any vaccine. Yes, their first reaction is going to be bad. And the same applies for the Moderna. That's the only one I can talk because that's the one I put.
Mhm.
And why I put it? Because what you were saying at the beginning, fear.
Mhm.
And not because I fear that I was gonna be infected, that I was gonna die, even if
Mhm.
family of mine did die from corona.
Yeah.
I I did not have to this day do not have the fear, but the people around me were in fear.
Mhm.
And I am true believer that whatever you fear, you're gonna attract. And in my family were afraid that I was going to infect them and I was going to kill them because I was working with clients and going to buy food or whatever. They were fearing me. Then they would attract something that I didn't want to. They fear me. So
Mhm.
that's why I put it on.
Mhm.
For they don't fear me because to this moment I still do not fear uh, the corona, even if family of mine already died.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, I'm sorry that you lost a family member, Monica.
Yes.
Mhm.
So there is a lot of division in this, and I believe the biggest fear that right now is consuming the human being. It is the division that is creating the vaccine, and it
Mhm.
started with the light workers or way showers or spiritual community. It started there, that
Mhm.
division, and that's what we knew that we were gonna be divided, but we didn't know how.
Mhm.
And this is the division that where it's at. People judging each other like they know better. No one knows better at this
Right.
point.
Correct. Yes.
And doctors will say put it on, and doctors will say don't put it on. It's like, and same apply for nurses. In
Mhm.
reality, no one has the answer. People are dying
Mhm.
for putting it or for not putting it. We don't know the truth.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's it comes back to what you believe and why you believe. Who do you believe and why do you believe them? My wife and I have had some tension over this, and as I kind of present, the bigger picture, there's many levels to this. There is the financial level to it. There's the social level to it. There's the technological. There you know there is the narrative going around that COVID is a bioweapon as well. Um, and in my conversations with my wife, what it really comes down to is, who do you believe and why do you believe them?
Yes.
And the deeper we go down that question of why we believe something, that's where we start to really get clarity, I think, to get answers. To me, the reason why there's division is because there's so many layers to it. People see it, some people see it just from the scientific layer. Some people see it from the holistic spiritual layer. Some people see it from the financial layer. But I think there's a need for layered learning now, to understand that that we all have a role to play. Right now, we're divided because we're coming from a place of fear. But if we accept this idea that there are no throwaway people, that everybody is essential and they have an essential part of the puzzle, we can start to put those parts of the puzzle together. And that starts with having emotional, real conversations based on experience, based on, what have you experienced, what have you observed, how do you feel, are you willing to look at a different angle? Because there's subjective truth. There is we have these conversations where we talk about what is observable. That would be the science, the fact. What is subjective truth? What is the story? What has been your emotional experience with this? And finally, what is the emotion that you're feeling? Because emotions will distort a lot as well too. And I've been finding that when somebody can have a coherent conversation and really look at those three different areas of the same occurrence, cohesion starts to emerge. When people can get in touch with their emotions and really own their emotions, they can take a step back and they can look at, well, where did that thought come from? Where did I get that thought? Who influenced me there? Do I even remember who influenced me there? And then we bring it back to, okay, well, what are we aware of? Where is our attention?
But
And
that
then that
applies,
comes, Mhm.
sorry, but that applies for the two sides. I have
Yeah.
seen the two sides. I have lost friends, I have lost clients. I've been kicked out
Mm,
of schools because I put the vaccine, and they tell me, oh, they're controlling you. Then it's like, what you want to do is control me.
mm,
Like, this was my choice. It's not
mhm,
because I saw it in CNN. I don't even watch the news
mhm.
since years ago. And it's like this was totally my decision. It was not influenced because I make sure that my inner guidance tell me if I should put it or I shouldn't. So I
Mhm.
got to the conclusion that I'm gonna put it because it was my choice. It's
Right.
not influenced by anyone. But if I follow someone that is instigating me fear that, oh, it's gonna change your DNA, or you're not gonna be able to channel, or you're not, then you're trying to do exactly the same thing as the other people.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
You
Yeah. It's
can
called opposames. Opposames.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where it will learn to when an advice, it is just an advice. You can keep it or throw it in the trash
Mhm,
without trying to instigate fear. If you
mhm.
instigate fear in anything, in wars, in hunger, in education, in religion, or in anything, then you're manipulating and controlling, and you're in the same part of the problem.
Right. Right. And there's so much cognitive dissonance from that too. We have we observe what's called control dramas, where if the needs, especially when you're a child, are not being met, we learn these control dramas about how to manipulate people. The book, The Celestine Prophecy, really puts them into four categories, which I think are pretty accurate. We either intimidate, we interrogate, with our intellect, with questions. We play victim, we play the poor me card, and or we disconnect, we become aloof. And these are all defense mechanisms that are all playing off of each other. But each one of those do have a reversal. They do have a counter. and mostly it's just being authentic. It's just being present to, your feelings and practicing empathy. Really practicing empathy. If someone is trying to control you, if someone is, coming from that place where, they have to be manipulative, whether they're doing it consciously or unconsciously, it's based in a fear. And, it's coming back to that, what is the root of that fear? And, where did that fear originate? And then that comes back to, who do you trust and why do you trust them? And, is it based out of trauma or is it based out of healing?
It is funny. Today I was talking with my teenager daughter
Mhm.
about that we have to become aware all the time of every single emotions and thoughts. Was
Mm,
telling me it is impossible, mom, to be all the time. It's like it is possible. You activate your frontal lobe, and now you can control. You can be aware all the time of your thoughts and your emotions, and that's the only way you can control what is behind everything because you become the observer. You're not in the
mhm,
judging mood, and in that moment, you have the control. No one can control you.
mhm.
And that can make the real change in the human being if we start using our frontal lobe and becoming aware and removing the judgment. What is
Yes.
good or bad
Mhm.
or
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Being honest with yourself too. When a feeling comes up, being honest with yourself. And that's really the opposite of control. Really, it's allowing, it's accepting, it's going with the flow of it. So, observing is almost like the opposite of control.
yes.
And that's where I believe true authenticity comes from. Yeah.
And how you're planning, well, obviously there's is how many years you have with your foundation to start?
Well, the Karmic Margin Call was established in 2017, so about 4 years now. Although the ideas have been marinating for over 20 years. So I'm I'm going into a second phase of it. The first phase, which I'm completing right now, is establishing fellowship culture, what I also call deep democracy, which is really just having conversations like this and changing the sequence of the conversation, starting with appreciation, exploring possibilities, and then going on, through invitation, dissension, responsibility, and then commitment. So it's really just establishing the space to take time to really talk to each other. There's no agenda. It's just sitting there and being real and riffing off of each other's thoughts. I'm going into the second phase this year where I'm starting to collect data around those conversations. What is it that people are really looking for? What is it that people really want to be dedicating their time and life to? And that can be measured. And that's what we're starting to create right now. And then the third phase is where we start to implement that data and superimpose it onto the current financial system. And that's where, the conversations change. It becomes less about competitiveness, less about hierarchy, and more about deeper collaboration. And yeah, that's the plan for 2 or 3 years from now. But right now, the fellowship culture is where the foundation is at right now. It's just establishing the space to just no agenda, be real. Let's talk about what it is that you're really looking for.
And knowing your background, you're an actor, right? I
Mhm.
am an
Yeah.
artist.
Mhm.
So coming from the point of view as an artist,
Mhm.
both of us, it is we have a very different way of observing life
Mhm.
as the people that are not artists. uh, we see it different
Mhm.
because our dream, I believe, of every single artist, I don't care, is musician, poet, actor, painter, sculptor, and all the artists, is that just create our craft and or and help others, but at the same, but we don't have to worry about the money. The
Right.
worst thing that can happen to a painter is like, how much I'm gonna sell that,
Mhm.
or putting prices, or putting even names.
Mhm.
And that's the same applies for the writers or the actors.
Mhm. Yeah.
That will be a really ideal world for, at least for the artists, maybe not for the lawyers or the bookkeepers
Mm.
or, or doctors. But for the artists, it will be really an authentic, beautiful world that we all dream, that we
Mm.
all create, and we're worrying about where the money is going to come from to pay the light.
Mhm. And I'll say this too, even if it's a bookkeeper or an accountant or a financier, there's a hidden artist in them too. And I'd like to think that that's the inner child, that sometimes seems elusive. But yeah, you'd be surprised, how many doctors would rather be spending their time dancing. Um, so it's the kind of thing where it's balance. It really is balance, between the structure and the creativity. And yeah, and really navigating the simple, the complicated, the complex, and the chaotic, but knowing that they all serve a purpose.
Yes.
Mm.
We can. What do you think about Ubuntu? Because it's something that it has the basis what you're talking about, but
Mhm.
I have not seen it exploded like I thought it was. I've been observing
Mm.
it for years and it
Mhm.
haven't.
Yeah, I am aware of it, and we're starting to come into conversations with people associated with the movement. Um, I agree with the philosophy. We go together with this. And there's a beautiful adage that I learned from the African culture is that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, we go together. So that's why I think it's important to slow down and to find the values. If the values are driving the conversation, driving the action, driving the initiative, we'll go far. And that's what Ubuntu means to me. As an organization, I'm hoping I'll have deeper conversations with the Michael Tellingers of the world. Um, so it's the kind of thing that I'm very curious about it at this point. So I am aware of it. I know of it. I'm very curious about it, and I know there's a lot of alignment and a lot of correlations, and I'm open to deeper conversations with that movement. And I think it's been my intuition, and this is completely intuition. This is not based on any fact or any experience, but I think there is a contrived agenda in suppressing a movement like Ubuntu because it does wrest control away from a hierarchy, from the people at the top of a pinnacle, or the elite as we call them. So it's the kind of thing where I can see where such a movement would be strategically suppressed, and I'm interested in exploring, how to have how to have expansion one conversation at a time, because the mainstream media, even fringe media, is not really going to help a movement that's intrinsically driven, and that happens by one conversation at a time. And I always say the true revolution is not going to be televised. When the true revolution is here, you'll know it, and a lot of us are already there.
I feel that maybe societies, we were not meant to have millions of people in the same place. It's not
Mm.
sustainable.
Mm.
Maybe we were needing to be like our ancestors in small groups of people,
Mhm.
and that will be the only way that it can work. According to many ETs, that's how they they live, and they're living with less stress than we are as humans over here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One of the values that I hold dear with the Karmic Margin Call Project is that the real power is in small groups. And I believe if you have a deep connection with just 3 people in your life, you have more than you need, and we'll we'll provide the way. We will all provide the way forward with that. I think it's an illusion to try to impact millions of people. But if you have that deep connection with just 2 or 3 people in your life, that's all it takes. That's really all it takes, because there's something to be said for the quality of the relationship, rather than just generating millions of transactions, which are meaningless.
Michael, I love your idea and how we can help.
Well, if anyone's interested, my website, karmicmargincall.com, has a link that leads to an application to become a member of our time bank. We do have international membership at the moment. And really, short term, it's just inviting everyone to the conversation. Like I said, we're really establishing what I call fellowship culture. I say fellowship. I know there's a lot of religious connotations that come with the word fellowship, but what it really means is coming into a sacred circle together where we have a commitment to see each other's values. So anybody who wants to support here in these very beginning phases, can just go to karmicmargincall.com. There's a space that says click here for the application, and I will receive the information. And within about 2 or 3 weeks, I invite the applicants into an appreciation conversation where we start to explore the concept. We start to explore what a regenerative economy would look like. And that starts with a really personal conversation. What is the value that you bring? What is the insight? What are you feeling? What is your life story? Because that has infinite value. And that's how it starts, is just with an appreciation conversation, and we'll find invitations, we'll find pathways based on the person.
I hope everybody that is listening right now or listening later on will be interested. I believe the ones that are going to be seeing these videos, because probably this video is for them.
Hope so.
And I really appreciate your conversation, Michael. Would you like have something else that you would like to add?
No, at the moment, I feel very complete. And I think the only thing I want to close with and just acknowledge is that almost everyone I speak to, especially when they're thinking in terms of strategy or how, or what is it going to take to change the world, go easy on yourself. Go easy. We're all a team here. Even if someone looks like your adversary, they are your teacher. We really are all on the same team here. It's just a matter of going deeper. And just go easy on yourself, love yourself, and just be honest with yourself, because everyone's feeling overwhelmed, and that's part of it. We're breaking out of a very strong chrysalis right now, but we're all going to be our own spiritual butterflies here very soon. And just the person that you connect with the most, who you have the deeper connection with, if you got that, that's all you need.
I do agree. Thank you, Michael. And let me tell you, the spectators, what we're having the next week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You remember Graham?
I'm sorry?
Do you remember Graham Forscott?
No, oh yes, I do. Yes. Very cool.
The next week in Soul Talk, we're going to have Graham Forscott. He's a galactic astrologer with a blend with a ray to fractals physics, solar mechanics, and plasma cosmology at 7 p.m. Central Time. And it's a talk that you don't want to miss. He is so interesting to talk. I have learned so many things from him and about me. And don't miss it. And I'm starting a new container the next Wednesday, October 20th at 6 p.m. and it's for women. How to raise your standards in a relationship and learn how to love yourself and care for yourself and let go guilt and shame and fear. Precisely what we were talking right now.
Yes.
Because I believe that's the first steps for having a good relationship, not only with the outside world, with the inside world too. And in the description box you can find Michael's information and also the information of a free group Awakening from Within. and this channel survive from your donations, and any help can help us just at least to cover the investment. That I will appreciate that very much. And thank you very much. Thank you, Michael. Thank you
Very
everything
welcome, Monica.
you're doing, and I will sign up.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Monica. I appreciate it. And I hope we can do it again sometime. This is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye bye. And
Bye-bye.
congratulations for your daughter.
Thank you. Yes, looking forward to it.
Bye bye.
It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Sometimes it